Welcome, everyone. As you arrive to our session today, I invite you to set aside distraction and just give yourself to the practice of conscious transition. So, being aware of whatever activity you're coming from, aware of whatever thoughts you were just giving your attention to, and then consciously bringing your full attention to the here and now, inviting your body to settle. Aware of your relationship with gravity. As we're waiting for everyone to arrive, anyone who would be willing to write in the chat box where you're coming from. That's always fun to see as we're settling in. And whether it is morning for you, afternoon, or evening, just beginning to greet yourself exactly as you are. Becoming more aware of the weather of your body in this moment. Becoming aware of the climate of your heart. I'm going to take a peek in the chat box. And I see Jennifer Love in Portland. Hi, Jen. And I see Veronica in Puerto Rico. So glad you're here. I'm going to read down the list. New York, Florida, Kentucky, and Santa Barbara. Hi, Jennifer and Randy. And I see Barcelona, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Indiana, Mexico, more from Michigan, Florida, Santa Barbara, California, and I'm here in Western North Carolina, where spring is bursting and we're also experiencing a cold spell, so I'm a bit bundled up today. Austin and pouring rain. It brings me great joy every time that we connect in conscious community in this way. And so as you begin to settle, just see if you can find the most comfortable physical position, relaxed, grounded, and upright at the same time, awake. Unless you're working with some physical difficulty or injury and you need to just be lying down, that's welcome as well. And I think before we begin our meditation, I just want to say something about the significance of this, continuing to come together, to support one another in conscious community, to go deeper in our practice of presence, to help one another remember who we really are, our vibrant aliveness, and to remember the choice that we have to either believe and feed the limiting, harm-causing narratives, stories, so many collective stories flying around right now like a buzz trying to distract people, and bringing ourselves back to center, grounding in that which is deep, the field of presence which is vast and all-inclusive to everything we will ever experience as human beings. So with this appreciation for one another and appreciation for what we're doing here, let's all begin by resting our eyes. Your eyes can either be closed or in a soft gaze. But as we pause from giving so much attention to the visual field, the invitation is to begin to open the orifice of our larger awareness. Begin by taking in 3 deep, full body breaths. Just feeling the air as it enters your body, fills your body, and leaves your body. And as you allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm, notice what that is today and in this moment, every moment fresh. And see if you can allow your breath to breathe you. So to soften any efforting in this moment and let yourself rest here. Breath breathing you. Welcoming yourself exactly as you are. And when I say welcoming yourself, I mean welcoming your larger self. The inner landscape, the outer landscape, softening, opening, and learning to welcome life exactly as it is, moment by moment. Opening our senses and our field of listening to actual reality, life as it is, unfolding moment by moment. And as we continue to meditate together, allowing your breath, body to anchor you here and now. Deepening our practice of opening and being with what is. In this practice of intimacy with life, or remembering our natural capacity to be with, to meet with love. Our bodies, ourselves. Life as it is. So simply be aware of the qualities of softening and openness, receptivity. Nothing to do or strive for in meditation. Nothing to solve or change. How revolutionary. Nothing to turn away from. Remembering the spaciousness. Remembering the space. So that life can move through us. Remembering that there's both a relaxation, a resting, and a compassionate discipline to practice. So that we're learning how to physically, energetically, wholeheartedly rest into the stillness that can hold everything. And we're noticing if we get pulled away, seduced by story, judgment, any narrative in the confines of our own conditioned mind, with kindness. Just bring curiosity to what pulls you away. If it does so here in sitting meditation, then it does so in life. And gently but firmly bring yourself back. to center. Just notice what's here for you to receive in the mirror of stillness today. If you notice efforting, see if you can invite a softening, allowing the spirit of surrender rather than effort. And I'll take a moment to remind you that while in a few minutes we'll move into compassion practice, that sitting meditation and all of our meditation through life is rooted in, is encapsulated in kindness, learning to soften, surrender, and let go of our limiting identities and beliefs to actually rest in our oneness with the mystery, our oneness with all of life as it is, with the vastness and limitlessness of awareness. And so the kindness of being willing, even though it can be scary for ego sometimes, even though sometimes we kick and scream to try to hold on to the familiar, to try to hold on to a narrative that is just a fleeting thought up here, but with which we find familiarity and false safety. So the kindness in learning how to be with this human being in the spirit of supporting this being to surrender to and remember who you really are. Beyond the stories, beyond your conditioning. Beyond who you were once upon a time. This is also an expression of learning to trust life, learning to trust life to move through us and to guide us. Once we've begun to let go of this conditioned narrative as our assumed guide, as an assumed useful source of information, which is not. So I invite you to connect again with the qualities of openness, curiosity, and allow now your breath to deepen. Rest your attention at the very center of your heart, where you can feel the expansion and contraction of your lungs and rib cage as you breathe. And let's take a moment to just breathe deeply. And then in the spirit of conscious transition, which I named at the very beginning of our meditation, which is something we want to be cultivating throughout all of life, in which we are in constant transition. Just take a moment now to gently appreciate yourself for your being and for your practice. And to notice if there's any part of your being that especially could use kindness and care today. And then you're welcome to rest a hand at the center of your chest. And with eyes still closed, just take a minute to offer yourself compassion, friendship, in whatever way feels authentic to you. even if it's as simple as the reminder, I love you, keep going. So you can very gently open your eyes. And of course, being in whatever physical position is comfortable for you, we can remain in the mind of meditation. As we move into our Q&A, our group discussion, so really staying as rested in our bodies, as relaxed into the field of deep listening as we can. And I see some questions have already been brought to the Q&A box, so that's the place that all questions are welcome. Whether you have a personal question about something you specifically are working with and want to seek some guidance, or where there's a more general question, every question supports the whole collective here. And there's just a couple of things I want to say before we move into that. The first is, I want to let everyone here know that a week from today, next Tuesday, begins a 4-day meditation and mindfulness summit with the Shift Network that I just co-hosted with a friend, fellow Dharma teacher, Kyra Jualingo. And we had such a beautiful experience holding space for some really extraordinary conversations for these extraordinary times. And so it's free. I'm really touched by it. And if you go to my website, I know on the This Month page and also simply under Retreats and Offerings, you can sign up. It's something you need to register for, but it's free. So there are 4 days of deep conversations, including conversations with me and with my core teacher, Joanna Macy. So enjoy that. I also want to just acknowledge that as I've been talking with people and teaching people all over the world, I'm hearing a lot right now of people continuing to find the willingness to deepen their practice, to stay grounded and anchored to the best of their ability, really acknowledging the love and interconnection and joy that is available to us. And that's important to cultivate in a time of such collective distress. And simultaneously, this is a time of so many loud collective stories going around that perhaps are not so helpful. And so to offer an encouragement to everyone to really be mindful of your own energetic field, to be mindful of the conversations you participate in, to be mindful of your energetic contribution in every moment during this time to the collective field. We share it. We feel one another. We can feed it with fear, or we can feed it with clear seeing and care. And something I want to remind people of is just the potential right now for confirmation bias. So, practice really invites us to empty, to meet life with openness and beginner's mind, to be open to all that which we do not know, we do not know. And the ego likes to do just the opposite. It's holding on tightly to its positions, its beliefs, its suspicions, and it is out there seeking evidence, subconsciously or whether you're conscious of it, to support its limiting belief systems, its position. So whether that applies to something internally, like, I don't really believe I'm worthy, and so there's a part of me that is out there seeking evidence. See, it's true. Once again in my life, it's confirmed. I'm not worthy, because we're holding on to that story. And likewise, we can see it in the collective. I suspect this is the larger conspiracy going on right now, so I'm going to get out there and seek evidence, and then post that evidence all over Facebook, as an example. So I just want us to all bring awareness to this, bring awareness to the potential right now for confirmation bias, or the potential for being open to that which we don't know, and supporting ourselves to be clear seers, and also to contribute to a field of togetherness rather than positionality. Yeah? So that said, all topics are welcome today. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the Q&A and maybe ask Lauren if you'd be willing to read the questions today and just make sure that we get to everyone's questions. Okay?
Okay, we have 3 questions right now. The first one, I'm taking space from a relationship that isn't serving my well-being. It has not felt mutually caring, and I feel I've given too much. I've been pulling back, investing my attention and energy, but now I feel immense guilt. I feel like I'm harming the person by ghosting, but they have not reached out either. Should I just drop the guilt and focus on my needs, or what do you suggest?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is one of those places where it's a really great application for relational mindfulness, deepening our relational intelligence. And so there's a situation where you really were getting the feedback from yourself that you needed to take space, that you're not sure you're receiving the care and the quality of attention that you want to and need to from a particular relationship. So you've been taking space, and now there's guilt, which, by the way, I always question guilt if it's actually necessary, if it's actually useful in any form whatsoever to human beings. More often it's something that if we are attached to a harmful way of operating, we're actually getting some juice out of the guilt. So that said, what is helpful is this: paying attention to our natural feedback system. And so beyond the guilt, it sounds to me that there is some natural feedback coming through that's just having you question, am I causing harm to this person at all? Have I created this boundary in a conscious and caring way myself? Because it's possible, everyone, to set boundaries with absolute love and kindness behind them, rather than othering people through that. It's a way of saying, hey, in order to take care of what is true and authentic for me, which serves the whole, because it's my authenticity, I can create a boundary that comes from a kind place, okay? So that said, for you to investigate this natural feedback that you've received, this questioning of, if it's harmful, that means there might be something there. The guilt is not helpful. The guilt doesn't actually lead us to the same mindful investigation that a feeling of questioning, is this causing harm, leads to. So what I would suggest is you can take the action that feels true for you, but it might be neat to sit down and get as centered and present as you can and generate a communication with this person where you are being as honest as you can, inquiring, hey, I really, from my most authentic place I could access inside, needed to take space, and I'm not sure if I've done so in a way that was causing harm, and that wasn't my intention. So to invoke whatever communication feels clean and clear to you. As human beings, that's something we can always be giving our energy to, moving through the relational field in a way that is clean, that does not create extra energetic residue. That includes taking care of our own selves as we go along, step by step, so we're not left with unmetabolized stuff, unmetabolized emotions, resentment, feelings, fears, and likewise that we're not putting unmetabolized stuff out there onto others, because that's what becomes toxic. Yeah. So there's some limitation to me answering your question through this format versus if I could have a conversation right now with you and ask you some questions, but I'm going to keep it to that right now. And you're welcome, if you need any further clarification, to ask a different question. Okay. So let's all take a pause and just connect with breath. Just in the practice of conscious transition and integrating each response, noticing how each person's question touches, impacts you. And Lauren, would you be willing to read the next question?
Sure. How do I move through a deep grief and sadness? And how do I best hold space for others also moving through this grief?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is really, really, really important. It's important because grief is such a sacred messenger and such a strong, powerful emotion. It's not one to be turned away from ever. And before I speak to it, I also want to acknowledge that it's such a collective, shared experience right now. The dominant paradigm, the society I grew up in, doesn't tend to celebrate collective grieving, the importance of grieving together. It tends to model pushing away grief, along with pushing away every single thing that makes us uncomfortable, yeah, without acknowledging the truth that every single thing which makes us uncomfortable, every difficult emotion, but especially grief, is a messenger and is coming to us to be felt fully in our bodies, in our hearts, and to be honored. Grief is actually the other side of the coin of compassion, okay? So there's a couple things that I'll encourage. And one is, I'll just share that I haven't posted it yet on my website, but I'm planning to create an offering or open registration soon for something that is a field of work I teach called the Work That Reconnects, a field of work that was created by my teacher, Joanna Macy, to help people transform their grief, their pain, and love for our world into compassionate action. And I simply feel and sense that it's time for an offering of this nature, specific to what we're all moving through with COVID-19. In your own self, the first encouragement is to be aware that we can try to deal with grief up here, or we can get a little caught and tangled in our stories about grief. We can fall into a victimhood by our grief, overwhelm, and so we kind of go up here. Or we can drop as fully as we are willing to, down and in to our bodies, our hearts, the place where there is a healing alchemy that can happen when we truly meet our feelings. Some of you have heard me talk about the fact that we're all part of the natural feedback system of this planet. We're all in an intricately interconnected web. And so there is grief. There is grief for every single one of us, not just for the loss of living systems that has already occurred on this planet, not just for the systemic racism and injustice that is occurring across the globe, not just for the loss and collective fears regarding coronavirus. There is also grief that is simply left over, unmetabolized, from generations upon generations of isms. This is reality. Those of us who chose to incarnate in this time, those of us who are alive now, have consciously chosen to be here at this time and to be part of the metabolizing, yeah, of pain that has occurred, to open our hearts to it, to understand, because that's how we understand, is by turning towards our pain and discomfort. The capacity of love, that is who we really are, that is beyond anything we have imagined before. Even if we've tasted it, each time we turn towards it, it gets bigger and bigger, stronger and deeper and more sturdy. So turn towards it, turn towards it. Spend time with the part of you who is grieving, simply even in sitting meditation each day, just in the morning when you sit, letting yourself welcome and be with grief, vulnerability, loss, whatever tender experience might be there. Just that. And I'll also share that next week, as part of the shift interviews, I interviewed a friend and colleague named Lama Rod Owens, and his topic for that conversation was around working with our grief during this time, and it's a really rich conversation. Okay, so thank you for that. And
ready? The next one?
Yeah.
So there's 4 questions. Hi, Eden. I've been meditating with the breath as an anchor and counting 1 to 10. It really has worked well for me. Recently, I've started trying to meditate without an object, shikantaza. It's been hard for me to stay present without an object of focus. Do you have any advice when doing this meditation? Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. My first encouragement for you is you might want to, for this period of time, stick with the breath as anchor 1 to 10. Stick with that for quite a period of time, and what it will do is really allow both your concentration and your trust in the larger field of awareness, which is boundless, to coexist. And then, because I don't know how long you've been meditating, but it's really lovely to give a nice, spacious chunk of time in your life to deepening in any one particular practice. And there are so many different specific practices, but it's the commitment to just going deeper and deeper and deeper. Sometimes we confuse ourselves by then trying on another. So I've been sitting Zen, now I'm going to try on Vipassana. Now I'm going to try on just pure open awareness. And if you've had a personal experience that focusing on breath as anchor has really worked for you, fabulous. Keep going. Keep going. And it's also just my experience, because I come from the Zen tradition, that all roads lead home. And what I mean by that is sit long enough with breath as anchor, allowing your awareness to expand organically with each breath that you take, that open awareness becomes your home naturally through that form. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. And I'll also say that softening effort, and in general, softening, just opening to really allow life to move through moment by moment, is part of what we're cultivating and what helps us go deeper in every form. So just to pause for a moment. You know, each time we pause, we can practice the simplicity of one breath meditation. That's all it takes. Just being as subtly present to the experience of the rise, the pause, the fall of your breath moving through your body. So Lauren, who's next?
Hi, Eden. I am currently sick and in quarantine with what is most likely COVID. Luckily, I'm not in a risk group and the symptoms are fairly mild. I'm wondering if you could share some resources about meditating when ill to assist healing. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you for that. And my heart is with you, and for anyone who's listening today who's come down with the illness or who's quarantined in that way. And so the first encouragement is to drop any story that says, I have less access to meditative awareness because I'm sick, and to acknowledge that this is inviting you likely to slow down and probably to pause even more so than some people on certain external fixations or projects or activities. So that's an ally in practice. You want to be making sure that you have the most comfortable way to relax your body, which makes it easier to relax the mind and the focus on doing. And set up, I would say, if I were sick right now, a few supports for formal practice during the day, a few times when I'm showing up to sit, as well as acknowledging that informal practice can be happening all of the time, all of the time. So one of the ways that can look like is in this context of slowing down and having attention turned a little bit more within, both letting yourself be aware of how your conditioned mind operates, and so any stories that it might present about the moment, any stories or opinions, judgments, comparisons, measurement that it might present about you being sick, and practicing each time that occurs. Okay, my attention's going up here. My attention's going up here to this place of story, the land of story. Can I, each time I go there, no judgment whatsoever, but really practice dropping it and just coming back to the simplicity of feet anchored on the earth, breath moving through the body, air touching the skin, point of contact between my body and my clothing. When I just mentioned breath, I don't know your specific situation. I know that I've had respiratory illness in the past where my breath was barely accessible, and yet it actually didn't disrupt my meditation practice. There are other anchors you can use as well, though, if it does. Sound can be part of what reminds you to simply open to larger presence. And so to set up this whole period of time as a retreat, and part of it, which contributes to healing, okay, is staying out of story, and letting that build the muscle for the rest of your life of stepping back from story. And part of it is bringing the healing balm of compassion to your physical, mental, emotional experience. So if I were you, I would sit down and get in touch with, maybe even to do some journaling around, who are the different parts of me who are here in response to feeling ill. Is there someone who feels afraid? Is there someone who feels exhausted? Is there someone who feels sad? Here, perhaps sad for our world. To get in touch with the different parts of you who might be arising in response to being ill, and then to practice energetically turning towards rather than away from each of those aspects of your being, okay? And spending some time getting a sense of, we did the simple resting hand on heart, and I invited you to offer yourself kindness, reassurance. If you want, you can send me an email and I'll send you a 20-minute, much more detailed practice for self-compassion, but being ill can be the greatest teacher in compassion that there is, because it's so clear that if we meet ourselves without compassion, and if we meet ourselves and just let the fears or upsets around illness run, we're in really deep suffering. And compassion as an energetic form has been necessary and the most powerful healing balm for every experience of illness or physical fragility I've ever moved through. So you need to know how to access that and how to give your time to that now. I'm just going to pause and see if there's anything else I want to say about this. Just one more thing. And the one more thing is just this. Illness of any kind knocks us off our game and can feel very disappointing and upsetting that way, scary. But in knocking us off our game, we are asked to enter the bardos. The bardos in Buddhism refers to both the liminal states that we experience after death and any time that we are in transition, that we are walking through what feels like the unknown. Meditation itself, actually, to be honest, invites us into the bardos, and we want to prepare for our death, which will occur one day, for meeting the bardos by learning how to move through the unknown in this life. Being knocked off our game, the light side of it is, it knocks identity out of your solid grip. You can't be who you want to be or have always been or have the same energy level when sick. We get knocked into the unfamiliar in whatever form. And so that's a fabulous gift. Okay, if I have no stories going whatsoever about, oh no, or something's wrong, or I need to panic and be upset if I can't be my familiar identity, there's plenty of room to say what opens for me now, what quality of perception, of awareness when I am slowed down by illness might be here, what deep compassion that is who I really am that might not bubble up in the more casual moments of my life is going to come up now to meet me. What's the opportunity of falling ill? And of course, Rumi, poet, who I know everyone is well aware of, speaks of illness as the place where the light enters you, falling ill as the place where the light enters you. I'm writing a book about darkness right now, and the domain of darkness as our greatest teacher. We're not going to wake up from egocentricity, from anthropocentricity, from wake-centricity, our addiction to the domain of who we are and who we are in the daylight and in our known set limited identities, without acknowledging and celebrating the teacher of darkness, the mystery, the unknown. So there's great opportunity, and to meet yourself with compassion is how you can access some of what I'm sharing. So my heart is with you. And let's just pause for a minute. Maybe, Lauren, you can tell me how many more questions we have, just so I can be mindful of time today.
I see 3 more questions.
Okay, great. And if we need to stay a few minutes longer, I'm more than happy to do that. So what's next?
Okay. Lately, I've been aware of the big conflict between my ego and my vulnerability, a major duality. I want to shatter my ego so I can see my real self behind the shell, armor, to be naked and bare without judgment. But then I feel embarrassed and shameful, which is judging. I can't seem to shake it. This is such a challenge for me. Can you help me navigate?
Sure. Yeah. At this moment, I'm going to invite you to inquire into the phrase, I want to shatter my ego so that I can get to my authenticity. Only ego would want to shatter something. Just something to point out. There can be this notion in practice of kind of this solo, heroic, spiritual warrior. I had this when I first came to practice, that's going to transcend the dark and get to the light, transcend the ego and elevate to whatever enlightenment is. And that isn't how it works. The quality of courage that we're bringing to practice is really the courage that comes from the repetition of continuing to show up again and again with softened curiosity, that openness to be with what is, which is being vulnerable, rather than the notion of force or needing to blast through or shatter something. When I had my first interview with my Zen teacher, back in the late, probably 1996, and we sat down for our first interview. She said, "What would you like to look at today?" And I said, I was on retreat for the first time with her. I said, "I'm here to face the fire." And, I said that very sincerely and intently with my own spiritual warrior. And she turned to me and kind of paused with a soft smile, very warm energy. And she just said, "Where's the fire? Where's the fire?" And I laughed, acknowledging that when I looked in the moment from present moment awareness, there was no fire. But in my psyche, I was so used to there being something to battle, or some part of my shadow to get away from or judge, or some way I was imperfect and needed to fix it to get perfect. So my encouragement for you is to soften. The softening itself is the vulnerability. Completely drop the notion of needing to get past your ego. It's never going to happen. We don't cut off our egos in practice. Drop that notion for a while. Let your ego structure be revealed to you through your willingness to show up again and again in gentle curiosity, Zen investigation, and let the vulnerability come through learning how in your own sitting meditation to turn towards and be with whatever moves through you, to be with the vulnerability of being a fragile human being who contains all of it, who wakes up in different states every single morning, who has a different body, different times. Just being vulnerable with yourself and being tender with yourself. So great question. Thank you so much for asking. And Lauren, what's the next question?
I have two more here. One is also a comment, so I'm just going to skip that. So the next question.
You can read the comment too.
Okay. So Ben said, "Thank you, Eden. Very helpful."
Okay.
The next question. I feel afraid of some of the stories and narratives that are being posted, subscribed to, and promoted on social media. The hard part is that some of my dear friends and community are sharing and promoting these ideas. I have mostly stayed a silent witness and am holding inquiry for myself, and I feel so scared of the stories that are being spun. I'm not sure I have a question, but slight urges are a call to action, and I feel exhausted thinking about what that might look like. Reflections, suggestions?
Yes, I'm so glad that you asked this. And I really want to remind us all that one of the core ways we can be a contribution to a sane and kinder and more sustainable future, to possibility emerging from this time, is to not contribute to the conditioned stories and narratives that feed fear, positionality, othering, to stay centered, to cultivate your center. If you want to be a transformative presence in this world, you need to know your center. You need to know how to live from center and move from center. Okay, that's the training that you can give yourself to in this time. And that requires you to be aware of how popular it is for people to put their attention out instead of in. This is where we find center, and how we engage with the world at large from the place of stillness, which can hold it all, and which also is the place of kind and sane response. To be aware of how popular it is to go into these stories, to get caught in the kind of back and forth of bantering. You know, Facebook was never a good place for real conversation. Certainly a place for sharing some inspiration and art and share events. Not a place for deep conversation, not ever, but especially not during this time. And so I've seen such a uprise of positionality and unhelpful conversations. So for you to just ask yourself, you know, what do I need to stay centered now? It doesn't matter what your friends are doing, what they're talking about. Let that be theirs. What do I need to remember that which is deeper and more real than stories? Okay. And just going to look and see if there's anything else I want to say about this right now. You know, it's very personal to each of us. So like a human being, the statistic is in the year 1800, received as much information in 1 year of life as we receive in 1 day of life. And so we're a society that is completely biased towards doing and producing and information against space for integration and being with. There's so much that we need to be with. And so to learn your own edge, how much information can I take in? How many external conversations do I want to get involved in, but where I can still keep my center? You can even ask the question to yourself, like, what's my edge with socializing? How much time do I need being social versus being with myself to maintain center? These are the simple questions we can start with. And I'll share that yesterday, so I have a discipline of turning on my devices at about 10 in the morning and turning them all off at 6 p.m. I don't have any interest in being on devices at other times. And I noticed typically towards the end of my workday, I won't like take in new, I won't get involved in a whole new mental project, let's say, because I know that I want to honor the transition to evening. It's sacred space. But yesterday, a dear friend sent me a link to a really disturbing article at about 5 p.m. towards the end of my workday. And I read it, and it was by someone whose writing I really enjoy. And it really upset my nervous system. It was so much. I told my husband, if I had made this choice more mindfully, I would have waited till the next day to choose if I wanted to read that or not. But I did, and so I had to do some extra meditation after and really ground myself and really notice how whacked off center I had been by the fear-provoking article. So for all of us, can we do what we need to do to stay centered? Can we not get involved in nonsense and in conversations that feed paranoia and fear right now? Not helpful to anyone and not helpful to you, okay? There's deeper information from life that can come through right now if we are listening and if we are positioned to listen. It's coming through for me every single day because I position myself to listen. And a lot of it is about how to be of service in this time and what is true and what is not. So you have to be tuned into your own instrument if you're going to know what's true and what isn't. So we could talk more about that, but maybe on another day. I know we have, I think, one more question. So everyone just take in a deep breath. And Lauren, is this the last question?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
What are love and compassion practices to be in romantic relationship with someone whose heart is still healing and opening from heartbreak over their past love?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question. I wish that you were able to participate in the 3-week course that we started last week, Love Relationship Awakening, Relational Mindfulness Immersion for Couples. It's touching my heart so deeply. It's been so rich that I know I'll offer it again. So you can notice if it's posted in the future on my website. But for now, the first is I sense compassion in that very question compassion and understanding, having room for the very person you are choosing to be intimate with, not as you would like them to be, not as you hope they will be when they're past this or have healed something, but as they are now. What are they available for now, and what are they not? So softening your own expectations so you can meet this person as they are. Just like practice, so we can meet reality as it is, dropping our notion of what we would want to be different. And also to not, through your own ego agenda, have a push that they get through that quickly, that they metabolize that experience and get past it quickly. Again, to be willing to be present with ourselves and one another in our own organic process, the own organic process of our evolution in spiritual practice, our evolution of grief, whatever it takes, our evolution of moving on from a past experience. And this is also going to require you to have really kind engagements with your own self around this. So there might be a part of you who you get in touch with who has some fear or sadness coming up around what's up for your partner. Some part of you who would really like to help them get through this quickly. So to be with that part of you, okay? Part of any relationship is it's intimacy with myself that is required, and intimacy with the other. I think the only other thing I would say and suggest is listening, deep listening. So much of the time, that is all that is truly needed. We're very, very wired in our culture to think that we need to fix, solve, change, analyze, and figure out there's a problem we need to address. Much of the time, it's just things come back into their own alignment. They just come back when we listen from center, from generosity, from that spaciousness, open space, to allow someone to name their experience and have it witnessed with an open heart, to have it be about them and not about you when you're listening, to just be patient. We're all learning how to be with one another when it's easy, and how to be with one another, to be with being human when it's so uncomfortable. So we're really learning how to completely let go of our fear and our resistance to discomfort. Being human is so full of uncomfortable experiences. And when you cultivate your open heart, it's fabulous. I welcome uncomfortable experiences all the time. I welcome awkwardness. I welcome pain. But the heart has room for all of it. Stillness can hold everything. We're so much bigger than we think. So you got me off on a little tangent there, but I think it's important to name. And I think we'll pause there. And thank you, Lauren, for assisting. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. I'm looking at the side and I see people from Zurich and California and Mexico, so many different places. It's a joy to come together in this forum and to acknowledge that beyond the words and the screen, there is a field of shared presence that we can feel, that is energetic, that we drop into when we come together to practice. So I so appreciate this time with you, and to see you again on Thursday. I have a couple of offerings later this month about cultivating a joy in extraordinary times. So go to my website and join me, okay? Be well, everyone, and to be continued.